What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about some lessons that I hope the gaming industry has learned from Hogwarts Legacy. This is a pretty exciting video. I actually already recorded it once, and I said, you know what? No, it's not good enough. I have to actually add a little bit more to it. So I want to talk about a couple different angles here, because I think in terms of like game developers and what other games should copy or try to imitate, there's that angle to it. But I also think there's some things that gamers, the gaming press, right, like the sites, there's actually a couple of different things that goes on, with Hogwarts. So let's talk about specifically the game / the studio. It's hard to make a video like this entirely when talking about the game because the game is not out yet, right? So the lessons I'm talking about more or less are the things we have seen leading into it. I'm not going to talk about its incredible combat system because you don't know if it's incredible, right? The game's not out yet. But some of the things that I do think other companies, other game developer studios should probably, pay attention to is a few things. Number one, the communication with the fans, right? And I would actually, let's say fans in general, communication with them, respecting them, and making the game for them. All three of those things, incredibly important. Now, I do agree that when you make anything, when you make art, when you're making something that gets put out into the world, obviously there's part of it that you have to do it for yourself, right? Then when you take it to like a business point of view, they're trying to make money, right? There's an extra hand in there. You got WB Games, dictating some stuff. It's a little bit more complicated than making it for yourself versus making it for the audience. There's a little extra stuff that goes into it when you have such a big, thing that's going on. But generally, I do think, and it's been shown off, again, this is something that we don't have to wait until the game comes out, I think, to kind of safely say, this game is made for fans. This game is aimed for Harry Potter / Wizarding World fans, right? Now, this game, I do believe, is going to be a game that can get a lot of people, the open world RPG mechanics, right? Clearly made for a vast audience. But I do think their center core audience they have in their vision and they've had the entire time, right? So making it for them. Some games aren't necessarily made for anybody, right? When you reboot a franchise, you make a new sequel, say, of an older thing. Sometimes you don't actually do it with the fans in mind. Sometimes you're doing it with politics in mind. Sometimes you're doing it with just very selfishness, I guess, right? That we don't really care what came before it. We're doing it now. You see a lot of that in Hollywood, but you've been seeing actually a fair and actually an un-okay amount of this happening in gaming. So I do think that kind of mentality, that's what it is. It's not necessarily even a talent level. You don't have to copy any kind of talent that Avalanche has. It's more of just a mentality mindset that we're going to make a game based off a popular IP. And here's a shocker for you. We are not going to reinvent the wheel. We are not going to do stuff that's going to make them angry. We're going to stick close to the source material, but we are going to find a timeline and a time period where there's some wiggle room. We can kind of do not necessarily whatever we want, but we can work with this. And it's been done before. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, I think, is also an extremely good example of you got to work within the rules and the lore, but let's try to find a time zone where we can kind of wiggle around, and that's what they did. This, I think, would be very similar. So making the games for the fans, listening to the fans, respecting the fans. Look, and this will carry over into, I think, what the gaming industry, in terms of like journalists and other, I guess, gamers online, what they need to learn. Because when you have all of the noise that's happened, in the sidelines with Hogwarts Legacy, honestly, they've done about as good of a job as humanly possible. There's a lot of loud, very, very loud, very annoying people that are in a small minority on the internet. And, there's a couple ways you can handle that. We've handled it in different ways too, right? But Avalanche, they've taken it. They've received it. I'm sure they've received some pretty nasty things in their inboxes and whatnot. And guess what? Straight ahead, focusing on what matters, focusing on the community. And that goes into the communication they've had with us with inviting YouTubers to their gameplay showcase. How easy would it have been to just have IGN do an IGN first? In fact, Gotham Knights did that, right? Gotham Knights invited IGN to their studio, and they had them, I guess, actually what ended up happening is they had them watch. They weren't actually allowed to play it, but they had them watch gameplay, and they created the IGN first feature, a whole month of content for Gotham Knights. It's perfectly respectable. It's perfectly normal in the gaming industry to give Game Informer it, or to give IGN, or, whatever. I mean, that's literally what happens. I really get the sense, and maybe you could read this wrong, you could maybe read it as they're being so secretive that maybe they're like hiding some fatal flaws in the game. And I, in the whole like skepticism kind of argument, I could see how you think that, and I don't think that's necessarily like wrong. I honestly look at it more towards why. Why give it to IGN? Why give it to Game Informer? Why do that when, and this is, circling back, inviting YouTubers, and not millions of subscribers of YouTubers, right? Not to discount Ben and James, because they're great people, great creators. In fact, they're better than some of the bigger ones. But, you think about that, right? You could even go into the content creator, world and say, well, let's pick a couple, like, hey, does Jacksepticeye want to do something? But, like, why? Why would you actually want to do that? He doesn't care about you know what I mean? Or these big millions of subscribers YouTube channels that will cover Hogwarts Legacy once a year, or just when it kind of is popular, right, in the algorithm and stuff, which there's nothing wrong with that. It's just when you're looking for passionate people because you're trying to, like, go off that angle, why would you look for them? And in fact, look for people that have under 20,000, under 10,000 for Ben. That's incredible. It really, that is, again, if you're other games out there, I really do think there's something to that, right? Respecting your audience, respecting creators, people that actually do care. They're not just out just to be negative, right? Actually care about the game or the franchise and focusing on them. And then the angle, of course, with gaming journalists and with the fans, I do want to make this a very, very powerful point. So what do they need to learn, right? I don't want to get too controversial because I do want to have kind of one final video and one final message to the detractors, let's call them, of this game. But in terms of what they can learn, I would say a couple things. And I mean this very seriously and very blatantly honest. If you don't like this game, if you want to boycott this game, you have every right to. Nobody has ever told you, or they shouldn't tell you, what to do with your money. Your money is your money. If you want to use that money to buy the game, go ahead and buy it. If you want to use that money to not buy the game, go ahead and don't buy it. I thought we had that nailed down like decades ago. And for some reason, and well, actually we know the reason with this situation, right? Gaming journalists and people, I guess, online, gamers, right? They've taken it to the next step. So not only is it you don't buy this game, it's that you shouldn't buy the game or that you won't buy the game. Like, please don't. Otherwise, you are, let's write you kind of like a list of all the bad words that you actually are. So in terms of what they need to learn, to basically is to not even necessarily be quiet. I wouldn't, again, like, to be very brutally honest, it's not even that, like, you're not allowed to say something. Like, they're just words. Say it online, know whatever you want. There's, of course, like, where you can step over lines and stuff. But at the end of the day, I hope that they learn that they're really outing themselves, probably, well, partially as what they claim that we are, is actually what they are. But then also, they're just making themselves very, very loud, and it's not working. The idea that IGN kind of does these subtle little attacks on Hogwarts Legacy, or Kotaku just, hates the game, PC Gamer hates the game, like all the, GameSpot, Polygon, I already said, all these sites, right? They hate the game, okay? So what you're doing basically is you're opening the door to people like me. Actually, that's probably part of the reason why, and actually I said that, right? Why do you think they went to James and Ben and these kind of creators on YouTube and stuff for the game? Well, your other options are people that hate you, right? That think that you believe everything J.K. Rowling thinks, that thinks that you should all be fired and you shouldn't make Hogwarts Legacy. Like, those are those people. So why would you side with them as the game team? And it doesn't really look like they have, which I'm very pleased with, right? So in terms of what they need to learn is that you have every right to say you're not getting the game or you don't feel comfortable getting, or whatever. That's fine. But when you step over the line to say that now you can't, I know I wasn't going to, but now you can't. Oh, and by the way, not even that, because that's questionable, right? There's like a line there and you probably are already stepping over it, but maybe not. But let me tell you, when you are stepping over it, when you say that and then you start calling people things if you don't go with them, right? Very hive mind mentality. And these are, of course, and this is the funniest part, these are coming from the most inclusive, diverse people in the world. The people that you can be whatever you want to be, you can think whatever you want to think, and that's a complete lie. And I think that's pretty clear to anybody that pays any kind of sense to it. That's not true at all, right? These are people that they believe what they believe. And if you don't believe that, you are not inclusive, you're not with them, you're against them. The whole Anakin line, right? That's what that is. And so again, the simplest thing they need to learn is just stop, because at the end of the day, it's not working. Like, the biggest laughing moment to these people is that it doesn't work. There are people that truly could care less about Hogwarts. We talk about all the people that do care about Hogwarts. How about the people that don't care at all? They don't hate it, they just don't care. How about those people that I've seen time and time again say, I'm going to buy the game just because these people are being annoying? See, when you tell somebody to not do something or to do it, when you give them a demand, it's kind of in your human nature to almost like question it or go against it. We don't, for better or worse, we don't like being told what to do. Yeah, I think it's a little bit better than worse, but you could debate. But that really is the sense. There are people that don't care. It's not even their type of game. They're gamers, but it's not their type of game, that are looking to get it simply because these people won't shut up. And not just people, not just, random people on the internet, but literal gaming sites, these sites that are in place to report the news. It's just to talk about video games, and they inject this stuff that they really don't need to inject, and it's turned people off. So, I mean, I really think, I've spent probably more time on that than the other stuff, but it goes in a lot of different ways. From the gaming journalists and the people online, what they hopefully have learned is that this kind of behavior, this kind of like telling people what to do, it doesn't work. It makes you look really bad. It kind of exposes you to who you really are, so maybe you should try to hide that better. And also, it actually backfires. Actually, the game sells better when you don't shut up. So maybe actually you keep talking then, right? So that, and yes, that's a lot of jabs, but in reality, it does boil down to, if you don't want it, that's it. You don't want it, don't buy it. But in terms of how they've approached the dialogue with fans, the respect, these Twitter posts being very, very active, right? Besides that year and a half they took off, that also, then right afterwards, they did the delay after the state of play and stuff. Like, that was a bad era. That's actually what you shouldn't do as a game developer. But besides that, I would say when they were back and when they were active on social media, that's how you do it. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you guys are subscribed, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.